Hello and welcome to an arsenal building video for the recently released Roto Grip RST X-3, the Hype Solid, and the Hustle USA. To keep this from being 20 minutes long, we're going to shuffle up the bowlers a little throughout and just focus on building a general bag using these three balls. Starting at the top of the RST X-3, this is one of the strongest balls I've thrown from an aggregate perspective, meaning it's not as strong or diggy as a proton physics or a gem, but when you add the traction to the shape it creates, even on heavier conditions, it's about as much overall ball motion as you're going to get out of something. It's incredibly aggressive. If you can't get this ball to hook or shape, it's not the ball's fault. Something like a gem or a proton will sometimes be too much too early and not get the shape or the strong motion down lane, and something really quick on the back end like an RST X2 or a Rubicon UC2 may not actually hook early enough to get back up to the pocket. The X3 does both. It gets a lot of traction, it hits the lane trying to slow down, trying to dig in and move, and when it does it in a hurry. If you find yourself trapped between balls like this, where one is too early and smooth and the other goes too long or is too late, the X3 is the answer. Just understand it's a whole lot of ball, it doesn't play around. For both James and I, about the only challenge with this ball was getting it down the lane, and that prevented both of us from getting through some more in-depth testing. Usually we do all kinds of things to test a ball's limits and see what it does, change speeds, move around, throw it out, keep it tight to the pocket, etc., but there was really nothing to do but keep getting deeper and deeper. Now James does all this intentionally and usually one at a time. I like to mix it up because I've noticed in bowling that while two wrongs don't make a right, three usually do. We're going to step sideways into a reality check now, and this is a really interesting parallel. Both ASIMs, both hybrids, both strong covers. The check has a slightly stronger and earlier rolling and revving core, but it's miles longer than the X3. Similar overall traction level though. I'd say the extra length makes the check feel a couple boards weaker, but at the same time, no matter how deep James gets, the ball keeps coming. The X3, due to that medium RG, would sometimes not make it back because it's more dependent on cover traction than the core revving, so I'd call the X3 more cover heavy. The check is a little more core heavy, earlier rolling, faster revving, but cleaner cover so it glides down the lane. You can see it building momentum, and then it has a very hard arc on the back end. Technically on paper there's a lot of overlap here. I'd call them both one balls and would usually not think to pair two balls like this together, but the check is this weird blend of something stronger with something cleaner. It does rev up, it does hook a lot, it does make a strong move on the back end, but it doesn't look like it's hooking as much as it actually is because it glides up front and then has that strong arc that continues to continue. Now what's odd is that based on the reaction of these two balls versus what they look like they should do or be on paper, I'd believe the check is actually the X3 and vice versa. So just to show something interesting here, pulling some old footage of Angel with the X1, the X2, and then followed by a shot of the check, there's a lot of similarity and familiarity there, very similar ball motion. If you want an X1 replacement and are disappointed at how different the X3 is, check out the reality check. I think it could be what you're after. You might need a surface adjustment as the check comes at 4K fast while the X1 came at 3000, and another one to look at would be the Infinite Physics. It has that same rounder shape. Now keep in mind that the X1 was also a lot higher RG, so you're not going to get a one-for-one replacement, but the check or the Infinite would be a lot closer than the X3 is. Next ball down, let's take a look at the Zen. It's still one of the most popular balls in the lineup despite being almost 2 years old now. It's still the first ball out of the bag for a lot of people, and it's the rock or the benchmark ball in the middle of the arsenal for James. The key thing about the Zen is that it rolls so strongly, so it creates a lot of stability in the mid lane, hashtag buzzwords, but then it perfectly balances friction response and blend on the back end. This is exactly what's made it so successful for so many people in leagues. Most league patterns are pretty high ratio, meaning there's a lot of oil inside and a lot of dry outside. If you try to play too straight, ball takes off instantly, and if you move in a little, then you get wiggle or the ball skates. With as strongly as the Zen rolls, all that stability in the mid lane means a lot of predictability and a lot of forgiveness up front. Those with a lower rev rate get a strong roll without a ton of ball motion. Usually what happens is everything is either too early and slow or too long and responsive, and there's no happy medium. The Zen is the happy medium though. It rolls strong without hooking early, and then it gives them the right amount of shape so that they can still play straighter. For a bigger rev rate like James, he can get inside and have the heavy roll for blend if he misses in, and enough stability and response to get the ball back up the hill if he misses out. The amount of misroom a big rev rate has with this ball on a fresh league shot is insane, and even when on a little transition like he's on right now, it still maintains a look and enough blend to be viable deep into a set. The Hype Solid would be next, of course, and it's a pretty stable, rolling, blendy look that's somewhat familiar to the Zen, but less of everything across the board. It doesn't roll as early. I can't really say it even revs that much at all. It's just a very stable, consistent roll throughout the lane. It does blend the lane extremely well too, and there's no outstanding reaction characteristic about it. It's very plain and very boring, somewhat like the IQ Tour Solid. However, there's not really anything boring about hitting the pocket every shot. This is a perfect beyond perfect step down from the Zen. It's very much like a baby Zen Soul, but the point of putting this under the Zen is to vary the shape a little. If you stack something like the Hype Solid under the Soul, it becomes a little redundant from a shape perspective. Now that's definitely something I do. I tend to like different shapes in the same hook potential zone, or the same shape in different hook potentials depending on what I'm bowling on, so that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to think about or pay attention to. This can work well though, because with it being less of everything across the board than the Zen, the lanes as they transition will provide the extra reaction that you're trying to balance. As they dry out, you're getting more hook, earlier hook, and more shape. The Zen is already more hook, earlier hook, and more shape than the Hype Solid, so as the lanes burn up in transition, the Hype Solid is going to hook more, hook earlier, and react more sharply. Used back-to-back in a league set, these two could be all you need along with a spare ball the whole season. Dropping down to the Hustle USA, we find a different shape completely. Nearly as early as the Zen, it's a smidge earlier than the Hype Solid, but it's a more tumbly, gradual shape. Very continuous like the Zen and Hype Solid, but it's a lot more reminiscent of a shape like the Omega Crux, Nova, UC3, or even something like the Wrecker or Punch-Out going back a bit. The strong rolling but not quite chuggy and insanely consistent roll that's a pocket magnet. If you get it out too early, it blends the friction and walks back up. If you get it in, it rolls and then kind of settles into the pocket. It's that kind of roll where you kind of feed it to the spot and then it reads and blends. The Achilles heel of this ball will of course be that it can be too slow sometimes, but it's very, very difficult to miss the pocket with. This is a ball someone like Angel could actually start and then finish an entire set with. The earlier roll makes it feel like it's stronger than it really is, and if you keep surface on it, it masks as a lot stronger ball. As we finish watching the USA, I hate doing this, but it is what it is. Liking and subbing helps more than you know, so do a couple quick clicky clickies. If you like our jerseys, the code Rosdahl10 gets you 10% off at CoolWick.com at checkout. Code's in the description to copy and paste. I also have a Bowler's Mart link in the description for your bowling needs like any of these new Roto releases. Using the link associates your purchases with me, which helps me a ton. I also get a 5% commission, so it's very appreciated. The SRGBBFS group on Facebook is a must if you're an SPI fan, especially of rare, used, and international stuff, so check them out. We all use Turbo Quad Classic grips, we use urethane thumb solids, and James uses switch grip thumbs. Wouldn't have it any other way, and Storm of course is a huge sponsor of the channel, so big thanks to them. Also, if you want to leave me a tip, other than that it never pays to be a Dallas Cowboys fan, the super thanks button below the video on the line with the like and share buttons allows you to send me some digital dollars. Again, all these balls are available now. The X-3 is big ball motion, insane amount of hook and shape. The Hype Solid is an uber controllable option that's going to be great on house and sport. And the USA is a typical hustle, meaning it's a ton of performance for the price. And call me a staffer all you want, but Hustle Pro, Hustle HYB, Hustle HSB, Hustle AU, Hustle Inc., Hustle Wine, Camo, USA, the list goes on. They're $100 balls that have no business being as good as they are, but the proof is already there. Big shout out and thanks to my Patreon members and great Discord community. Thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.